The Chrisley family is a reality TV fan favorite. They have had many highs and lows with the incarceration and eventual presidential pardon of Todd and Julie Chrisley. The reality stars are set to begin a new reality show, The Chrisleys, Back to Reality, which will premiere on September 1st. A recent trailer for the show highlighted Chase Chrisley's struggle with alcohol. In addition, his sister Savannah shared that she was worried her brother Chase was going to die. Keep reading to find out more. The first trailer for the Chrisley family's new reality TV show, The Chrisleys, Back to Reality, has come out. In addition, it heavily features Chase Chrisley's hardships with alcohol as he tries to live an alcohol-free life. However, his sister Savannah has expressed extreme concern for him. She said, "Chase is not Chase. Like, it's literally like a blank shell." In addition, Chase Chrisley has run into trouble with law enforcement. The 29-year-old was recently arrested for simple battery at a bar. Allegedly, Chrisley attacked the manager at Twin Peaks Sports Bar in Atlanta, Georgia. However, it was reported that he was no longer on the scene upon the officer's arrival. Savannah has been vocal about her concern over her brother's behavior. She said, "He needs help. There's a part of me that is so afraid that he's going to die, that I'm literally like I don't even want to try to have a relationship with him." However, Chase Chrisley doesn't address his arrest in the trailer. He does say that not having my parents around almost felt like a death. In March of 2025, Chase Chrisley shared that he was 1 month alcohol-free. When asked what caused the shift in his behavior, he said, "Emotionally, I got tired." In addition, he further explained that he realized he was harming himself with his drinking habits. Chase stated that he wants to get sober for his health and well-being. He further explained, "My difficulty and my struggle with alcohol makes the highs high and it makes the lows lower." We'll be able to follow Chase Chrisley's sobriety journey in the new show The Chrisleys, Back to Reality. Chase explained that he felt like he was playing a character in the past. However, he has been able to open up and be vulnerable. In addition, he shares that fans will be able to follow along for all of the highs and the lows of the Chrisley family. Chase Chrisley, YouTube off Savannah, and Chase Chrisley are among the executive producers for The Chrisleys, Back to Reality. Todd, Julie, Savannah, Chase, Grayson, Chloe, and Nanny Faye are back. Fans will get to see them navigating life. The series is set to show a side of the Chrisleys that has never been seen before with exclusive access to the family. Fans will be able to cheer Chase Chrisley on as he navigates his sobriety. What do you think owes Savannah's fears for her brother's life? Let us know in the comments. The Chrisleys, Back to Reality premieres as a 2-night event September 1 and September 2 at 8 p.m. ET on Lifetime. In addition, there will be a finale episode dropping on September 16. The air in the living room felt thick, as though each breath drawn drew in weighty fragments of hushed fear and unspoken dread. Savannah moved across the space, restless, her gaze often landing on where Chase might be found, somewhere between shadows and the hush of memory. His absence of presence had become unnerving. He wore a stillness that felt like an echo of himself, a ghost bearing two familiar contours but absent of the light that once lived in his eyes. It was in the press of the show's trailers that reality cracked open, and the weight pressed harder. The glimpse of Chase's mugshot, blurred outlines of defeat, propelled Savannah into the rawest place she had inhabited yet. She saw him, not as the brother who ribbed her affectionately or teased their little sibling Grayson, but as something fragmented, diminished. The trailer didn't need words. The tension was etched in her eyes, her jaw, the tremor beneath her composure. He hadn't simply changed. He retreated into something hollow. The weight of that absence felt unbearable. Savannah's gut twisted at the thought. Chase was no longer Chase. He was a blank shell. That realization, more than anything, invoked a fierce, primal anxiety. Was he slipping so far that she couldn't reach him? Those fears melded into the stark phrase that haunted her, "He might die." The vision of him, unmoored, drifting toward oblivion without her intervention. An impossibility she could not bear. Even the timing of his sobriety whisper, almost 1 month free, bore its own double edge. Relief warred with dread. If he had climbed so far, why did he appear so adrift? The explanation was hidden beneath layers of exhaustion and emotional collapse, where highs felt higher and lows crushed harder. Isolation rotted within her chest at the thought that she could not touch him there. He was worn, torn, and at once distant and dangerously close to disappearing entirely. Shut inside solitary routines, photographing him in half-light to gather evidence of his vitality, scanning texts for any spark of recognition, replaying silent hours he spent lost in thought. The world around her, the upcoming show's premiere, cameras poised for the unveiling of Back to Reality, felt trivial pressed against the urgency to save him from himself. Nothing offered solace. Their parents, locked behind prison walls, loomed both as absent guardians and impossible beacons of stability. Their absence was an ever-present wound, bleeding into every moment. Chase had described the void carved by their absence as almost a death. How twist-bitter that phrase now returned to haunt Savannah. A death within life, a living without living. She wondered if grief had hollowed him in ways she couldn't mend. The one foothold she clung to provided threads of hope. Sessions for herself, for Grayson, for Chloe. Investment in healing, even as it drained her financially and emotionally. It was her attempt to tether them back to something steady. But could therapy save someone slipping beneath the surface? Someone who looked just fine but felt irreparably lost. She willed each appointment to be more than words in a room. She needed it to be a lifeline thrown across a chasm. Still, nights carried dread. The memory of him at the edge, the sight of lifeless expression, of silent shoulders, slumped as though burdened with a weight she could not lift, haunted the hours between sleep and waking. In those sleepless moments, she rehearsed how she might wake him, how she might pull him back if he disappeared entirely. The phrase repeated in her mind, "He's going to die. She's so afraid he'll die." It came without voices, a tide of panic rising until the world narrowed to breath and pulse. Every inconsequential mood he missed, the chuckle at a joke, the quick flash of warmth in his gaze, took the shape of lost ground to reclaim. She catalogued everything that looked off, the uncharacteristic silence at family gatherings, the tightness of his jaw, the heaviness he carried like gravity pushing him into stillness. She braced each day for signs. When he walked into a room, part of her eyes looked through the shell, seeking something intangible. Recognition, connection, a flicker of his true self. She understood that public portrayal would shift. This show marked departure from polished personas. But Savannah felt exposure was secondary to rescue. Cameras could capture moments, but she lived in the in-between, the unseen, the emotional terrain where fear ruled. She hoped that this raw honesty would reach him, as though by naming the fear, he could find a trace of himself in the narrative unfolding before audiences and family alike. Her fear existed in tension. She both cherished and recoiled from closeness. To try to reach him again required summoning courage, but the weight of fear, of watching him slip away, made her hesitate. What if her efforts were met by more distance? What if touching him in that place broke something irreducible? So the fear whispered, "Maybe it hurts less if you don't try." Yet love propelled her beyond retreat. She gathered strength from memory, the brother who once laughed with abandon, asked silly questions, teased his younger sibling with playful banter. Those echoes lived beneath the hollow shell. They were there waiting. And Savannah anchored herself to them. She fought sleep with that memory. She breathed into it in every therapy session. She pled with it in the silent darkness of vigil-like worry. She told herself that fear, while paralyzing, was also evidence that she cared enough to be afraid of loss. If she felt this much, his death, figurative or physical, would unravel her. So she held tight, steeling herself to stand at the edge of despair, hoping to be a steady presence that reached into him. Her mind replayed an unspoken litany. You have to reach him. Do not lose him. Fear is not failure. It is the undercurrent of love too deep to articulate. Night after night she lay alert. If cameras captured only faces and words, she carried the underbelly. And in that darkness, she named the fear again, not as defeat, but as reality, not as conclusion, but as doorway. Acknowledging the fear became a quiet pact, to not allow it to consume her or drive her away. Instead, she mapped routes of reconnection. Simple gestures of presence, invitations to sit together, shared quiet that felt safe. She didn't know whether tomorrow would offer recovery or deeper cracks. But she refused to let the fear devour hope. And so each morning, despite exhaustion, she woke determined to be there. "If he's going to die," was the phrase haunting her night. Her intent in daylight was simple: to remind him, in unspoken ways, that he was still alive and loved and needed.